What can the Seattle Seahawks expect from their special teams unit under a brand new special teams coach in 2024? What's going on, everybody? Good morning. We are back at it once again with one of the last prediction videos that I'm going to do before we get to the 2024 season. And this one doesn't really deal with one particular position, but it deals with all elements of special teams. So a special teams unit consists largely of a kicker, a punter, I guess a long snapper and holder, and then your return men, and then I guess your kick return unit or punt return unit. Now, for this video's purposes, I can't really discuss too much about the kick coverage and punt coverage units because that's a little bit hard to quantify because it's hard to separate from the kicker and punter, and it's also hard to really cook up meaningful predictions on how that unit is going to perform when, I mean, it would be tough anyway, but we have a brand new special teams coach this year, and special teams was an area where the Seahawks did mostly well over the last couple seasons. So if there's one position where you fired arguably for the sake of firing somebody, or at least let somebody go for the sake of letting somebody go, it might have been special teams. Nevertheless, we hired Jay Harbaugh, yes, Jim Harbaugh's brother, who was on the staff for the Michigan national champion Wolverines last year. Their special teams were often on display in a negative way, if we're being honest, especially in their playoff game against Alabama. But overall, I don't think that a special teams coach can have too much of a negative effect on a special teams unit. So I am expecting a relatively good level of competency, and I am expecting the things that are good about this special teams unit to remain good going into 2024. So not really going to talk too much about the coverage units because, I mean, we even lost Nick Bellore, right? Nick Bellore left this off, or we let him go this offseason. So we don't even really know what we're going to be doing in terms of like coverage units. And we're going to kind of have to wait and see on that one. But everything else we can take a look at here. So I've got some of our key players, or players who I think will be the key players on special teams. So let's go through it one by one. Before we get into the numbers, though, please like this video if you haven't already. Helps the channel out. Subscribe if you're new. Click the bell if you want notifications whenever a new video goes up. Consider becoming a member. Costs as little as $2 a month. That's less than 10 cents a day. All helps me out. Thank you. Let's start with Jason Myers. Now, Jason Myers, it is an even year, so things should go well for him. Last year, I predicted that Myers was going to not be as good as he was in 2022 because it was an odd year. He was even worse than I thought he was going to be. In fact, he wasn't even an average kicker. He was a below average, if not bad kicker in 2024. And I wasn't too happy about it because it seemed predictable. But it also seems predictable he's going to be very good in 2024. And I'm going to hold him to that. And I'm going to be very unhappy if he can't find a way to be really good this year because, I mean, we made him one of the highest paid kickers in the league, and then he didn't have a good year last year. So you better at least be the every other year Myers that we've come accustomed to. So Jason Myers, I think he's going to be perfect on his short field goals, 20 to 29 yards. Generally speaking, teams these days don't try that many field goals that are this short. They'll go for it if they're this close to the end zone. So I don't think this is going to be a big part of his kicking this year, but 6 for 6. On his short to medium field goals, 30 to 39 yards, I think he's going to be perfect as well, 12 for 12. Seems pretty reasonable to me. I mean, this is basically extra point length-ish, little bit longer maybe. So I don't see any problem with expecting perfection there. We go back to 40 to 49 yard field goals. This is more the intermediate area for a field goal kicker, where it actually becomes a little bit more understandable when you make an occasional miss. And I do have one miss baked in here. I think he goes 9 for 10 from 40 to 49 yards. And then from 50 to 59 yards, so these are the long field goals, I went with 4 of 5. He's generally been very good on long field goals in his Seahawks career. Even in some years where he hasn't been a very good kicker, he's been, at the very least, a viable threat to nail the long ones. He might even have a 60-yarder in him at some point this year, and he's got the leg for it. So don't be shocked about that. But I have him missing 2 field goals on the year, which seems reasonable to me. In the good years that Jason Myers has, he misses about 2 field goals over the course of the season. So I think it's reasonable. I also have him going 31 on 33 overall. So that's, that would make him one of the better kickers in the league. I wouldn't be upset about that. Also have him going 49 of 50 on extra points. And I'm willing to live with 1 miss at some point this season. It's just going to be, is what it is. And then I'm going 63% on his touchback percentage when he's kicking off. So that's a little bit better than last year, and it's going to be more important now. Touchbacks on kickoffs are going to be even more important now because they're changing the kickoff rule in a way that I think will add some chaos. So your best bet is to just not allow the other team to do a kickoff. So unless they decide to get rid of the touchback completely or try to, like the XFL did, I think that it's going to be very important that you have a kicker that can put it through the back of the end zone. And I think there will be a lot of pressure on Myers to reliably do that. So 63%. By the way, if somebody decides to go through my previous videos and does all the math and finds out that I have the Seahawks scoring less than 50 touchdowns this year, which may be the case, then whatever it may be, just say that I said that Myers will miss 1 extra point this year and he'll make all his others. Because I'm not 100% sure if I did the calculation on total number of touchdowns accurately. It might have come out to like 43 or 44. Okay, so that's Myers. Even year Myers, you got to come through. If you don't come through, I'm going to be unhappy. All right, Michael Dickson. We all love Michael Dickson. We all respect Michael Dickson. We know what he does. We know how he does it. He's a killer. He's a monster. He's on track to be one of the best punters ever. I have him punting the ball 59 times, which would be a very small, not really significant, but small improvement on last year, which is to say he'll punt a little bit less. I think that's pretty reasonable, given the fact that our offense should be a little bit better at least. I have him going 49.8 yards per punt, which is in line with what he's done previously and would make him one of the better punters in the league. 44 net yards per punt, which would also put him among the best in the league in all likelihood. Unfortunately, we don't get a game in Denver this year, so he's not going to be able to launch any of those 80-yarders to like really mess up his mess with his average. But it'll be another really good Michael Dickson season. I threw in 4 touchbacks. I think he's going to have a slightly better than average year this year, but he is going to occasionally have it roll in the end zone on his punts. Then I went with 23 of his punts go inside the 20-yard line. And let's say he does 1 botch. Let's just try to cover all our bases here and say that one time there's some kind of error, be it he doesn't handle the snap cleanly, or he drops it, or there's a block. Something's going to go wrong at some point. We have a new special teams coach. It's going to happen. But he'll be putting up Pro Bowl type numbers all day. Okay, so now we get to the return unit. This one is kind of tough, because we don't know who's going to be doing returns yet. I'm just going to take a guess based off what I've heard and the vibe that I'm getting right now. So the vibe that I am getting is that Laviska Shenault Jr. is going to be a kick return guy. I think that's why he's here. I think that's why he's competing for a spot on this team. I think that is why we brought him in. I don't think we're bringing him in to be a receiver. I think he's here to do return stuff. And I think he'll do a fairly decent amount of it. Remember, the kickoff rules have changed, so you're actually going to have 2 guys back there now, I believe. So Shenault's going to be one of them. I have him doing 11 kick returns. By a kick return, by the way, I mean you actually take the ball and run with it, not just you get it and then you knee it, for 250 yards. And that might seem a little bit high, but keep in mind that the rules have changed. And we're in a situation now where you get the ball, you make 1 cut, you might be gone. So Shenault, a guy like that, has a very good chance of busting like 1 90-yard, 100-yard return for a touchdown. that just blows up the average, even if he doesn't do that well on the other ones. There's probably going to be at least a few long returns this year because the NFL has changed things pretty drastically. D. Eskridge. D. Eskridge, I think, will be our other kick returner. I think that's why he's still here. Again, I don't think it's just a bluff that Eskridge is still on this team, despite the fact that he's clearly worn out his welcome here. I think the new coaching staff likes him and wants to see what he can do. So I think he'll be the other kick returner. I have 13 kick returns for him, 293 kick return yards. I think the new kick returns are great for what Eskridge can do. I genuinely believe that. If he can stay healthy, I think he'll be very good at returning kicks with the new rules. So that's how he adds value here. That's how he does stuff that makes him worth keeping around for this, well, actually, third year of his rookie deal. So this is how he makes his argument for being worth keeping around next year and worth keeping around going forward. There's not much room in the receiver core right now. This is where there's room to do stuff. All right, punt returns. I think that Eskridge will also be asked to do punt returns because, again, he's got to find a way to earn his keep, and I think special teams is the name of the game here. I think he'll do 7 punt returns for, let's go with 51 punt return yards. The punt return rules have not changed, so I don't think that Eskridge is going to quite have the same advantage here, but it'll still be an advantage to have somebody with his speed and skill set doing returns. And the other guy who I think will do punt returns, who I think will actually do most of them, will be Kenny McIntosh. I think this is how Kenny gets on the field this year. And I think his skill set, while he's not fast, will be pretty good for special team stuff like punt returns. So I went with 20 punt returns for a grand total of 341 punt return yards, which actually would not be radically different from what DJ Dallas gave you last year. And that's all your special teams that I have here. I think our coverage units will be fine. I think the kick return stuff could be messy. Like, we might give up some really long kick returns because everything is changing this year. And you might see a situation where we just let some stuff get away from us. But that's probably going to happen to every team because every team is dealing with that stuff. So I don't think we're going to be worse than anybody else. And punt return stuff, I think will be okay. We have a really good punter, and the rest should kind of fall into place behind him. So that is what I have for our special teams in 2024. I think we'll have a really good special teams unit. We've spent the money on it. It needs to be really good, or else, you know, that money is, it's not doing anybody any favors. I mean, you've got a couple of second-round picks as well. Shane Alt, not our second-round pick, but he was a second-round pick, and Eskridge was ours. So that's an investment. Needs to have some return. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you're feeling about the special teams unit this year under new leadership from Jay Harbaugh. See you guys soon.